Once upon a time in a forest, there lived a little hedgehog named Little Hedgehog. He was a very curious hedgehog. One night, he looked up at the sky and saw many tiny glowing dots. Hedgehog wondered, what could those be? Why do they shine so brightly? Hedge decided that as soon as morning came, he would set out on a journey to find the answers. The first one he met in the forest that morning was his mother, who woke him up for breakfast. Sitting at the table, Hedgehog asked his mother, "Mom, what are those glowing dots in the sky?" "Those glowing dots are called stars," his mother replied. "And why do they shine so brightly?" Hedgehog asked. "Long ago, our forest was covered by a huge blanket. At that time, there lived a giant hedgehog who kept growing and growing until his spikes touched the sky and pierced the blanket. That's how stars appeared, holes in the sky blanket made by the giant hedgehog." "How interesting!" Hedgehog exclaimed in amazement, but then asked, "And where did the giant hedgehog go afterward?" "Did someone call me?" asked Hedgehog's father, poking his nose into the kitchen. "No," replied his mother, and his father's nose disappeared into the darkness. Meanwhile, Hedgehog set off into the forest to continue his search. The first animal he met in the forest was Wise Owl. Hedgehog respectfully bowed and asked, "Owl, you are wise and know so much. Tell me, what are stars?" Owl squinted and, flapping her wings, replied, "Stars are little lights that fireflies leave in the sky. All day long, fireflies fly around the forest, and in the evening, they settle down to sleep on the sky's vault, and their light shines upon us." "So they're fireflies?" Hedgehog asked in surprise, and then after thinking, he inquired, "But why do they shine when they lie down to sleep? Doesn't the light disturb their sleep?" "What's the big deal?" Owl asked. "We owls, for example, sleep during the day, and the light doesn't bother us. But what does bother us are overly curious hedgehogs." Hedgehog apologized and thanked Owl, but he still had doubts inside, so he continued on his way. On his path, he met a beaver, who was sitting by the river, looking at his reflection. Hedgehog approached him and asked, "Beaver, you gnaw on trees day and night. I don't know why you do it, but I'm sure you have a reason. But I wanted to ask you about something else. Tell me, what are stars?" Beaver thought for a moment and replied, "If you look at the river at night, you can see how little lights from the sky, which you call stars, reflect in it." Hedgehog agreed that he had observed such a phenomenon. "There's a river just like ours in the sky," Beaver continued. "At night, the star's reflection gets stuck between these two rivers, the heavenly and the earthly. So, no matter which river you look into, you always see the star's reflections." Hedgehog stared at Beaver in complete amazement for a minute, then asked, "Beaver, by any chance, do you write scripts for Christopher Nolan?" "He refused," Beaver replied sadly. "He said it's too early for his audience. They won't understand." Hedgehog thanked him, but realized he wanted to learn more, so he went on. Soon he came across Fox, who was stealthily prowling through the forest in search of prey. Fox was cunning and knew many forest secrets, so Hedgehog decided to ask her too. "Fox, you are the cleverest and smartest. Tell me, what are stars?" Fox squinted slyly and replied, "Stars are the eyes of forest spirits. They watch over the forest, making sure everything is in order, and help travelers find their way home when it's dark. If you look carefully at the stars, they might show you the way if you get lost." Hedgehog pondered Fox's words and then asked, "So the forest spirits are kind?" "Of course," Fox replied. "Then why is there so much injustice in the forest? How do the kind forest spirits look at that?" "They look at it with kind eyes," Fox replied, staring at Hedgehog with an unblinking heavy gaze. Hedgehog realized Fox was very busy and decided not to keep her any longer. After thanking and saying goodbye to her, he started thinking again. Each of his friends had told their story, and all of them were so different. But how could he know which one was true? Evening was approaching in the forest, and Hedgehog went to visit his friend Bear Cub to share his discoveries. "Do you know what stars are?" he asked his friend as soon as they greeted each other. "I don't know," Bear Cub replied, "but I read in some books that stars are just like the sun. They are huge balls of gas that compress under the force of gravity, causing them to heat up and ignite a thermonuclear reaction, which makes them shine so brightly." "That's the craziest theory I've heard today," Hedgehog shook his head. "Why crazy?" Bear Cub asked. "First of all, stars can't be like the sun. The sun shines only during the day, and stars, on the contrary, shine only at night. And if stars were as hot as the sun, it would be warm in the forest at night, but instead, it's cold. Secondly, under the force of gravity, stars wouldn't compress but would just fall to the ground like acorns or pine cones. And thirdly, if stars were gas balls and heated up as you say, those balls would just burst and all the gas would escape. You're right. Bear Cub agreed. I must have remembered something wrong and got it all mixed up. Don't worry, Bear Cub. Hedgehog comforted him. You just need to read fewer books and talk more with wise animals. What do the wise animals say about it? Well, if you exclude Beaver, who, in my opinion, eats too many trees, which likely affects his mental abilities, you could say that stars are little holes in the sky blanket where fireflies rest at night and through which the forest spirits watch over us. Hedgehog, you're so smart, Bear Cub exclaimed in admiration. Let's have some tea. Mom just baked some pretzels. Hedgehog agreed, and all evening the friends sat at the table, drinking tea with pretzels and smiling as they looked at the night sky, recalling their friends' stories about the stars. The moral of this story is that you can't gain wisdom or learn life lessons just from books. If Bear Cub doesn't stop wasting time on reading, he will grow up just as naive, dependent on his mother, and unprepared for normal forest life.